Hi, guys. Welcome to another case study that I'm going to share with you today. I'm Dr. Jane. I'm a naturopathic doctor and natural fertility expert, and I help couples who have been struggling with infertility for over a year get to the root cause, heal, and conceive naturally. So, in this series, I'm going to share everything from why this patient came to me, what were the issues they were struggling with, the lab work that I ran in order to help me understand and the patient understand the root cause of their symptoms, the roadmap of the ups and the downs that we experienced. And with this case study on endometriosis, I actually have the whole pregnancy and what kind of happened in the first months of postpartum. I'm really excited to share the case studies with you because I think a lot of people grossly underestimate what it takes and what the healing journey looks like. A lot of the times we jump into a detox for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a couple of months and then feel like we didn't get the results that we thought, and then we would drop off. Sometimes it's starting a new supplement routine and then not really getting enough guidance and direction. And so I want to show you what it actually looks like if you're committed to healing and figuring out the root cause of your issues. So in this case, it's endometriosis. This is a really common issue that I see in my practice. And of course, if you're watching this, this is probably something that you're experiencing. And we're actually seeing a lot more women being diagnosed with endometriosis. And because of the high estrogen, the low progesterone, the really high inflammation, the immune system involvement that goes on with endometriosis, these are the women that end up struggling with fertility as well. So in this case study, I'm going to break down some of the root causes so you don't stop after you get the diagnosis. This is the most common mistake that I see women make is they say, well, I can't get pregnant because I have endometriosis. They never look at it as what can I do to reverse this disease and to really heal myself and to create an optimal environment for a natural pregnancy. So I'm really excited to share this case with you. So this person came to me because she had really super painful periods. They were also really heavy, and that has been the case for her all of her life. Now, she actually has not started trying yet. She was terrified of getting off her IUD and the progestin that she was put on a couple of years ago because she just could not handle the periods. She toughed it out for as long as she could, but it was basically running her life. Her doctor had no solutions for her, and she basically felt like she had no other option but to go on the IUD and the progestin, which of course took away her periods and there was no more pain. But when it came to family planning, she had no other options. Her doctor basically told her, well, when you're ready to have kids, we'll pull the IUD out and then we'll hope that you're just one of the lucky ones and you don't struggle. That wasn't enough of an answer for her. She wanted to take matters into her own hands. And really, her priority, of course, was to get pregnant and not to have that journey take years. But more importantly, she didn't want to have her painful periods anymore. So, ladies, if I can get you to focus on yourself and really understand that you are the place where the baby will grow, you're the baby room. I say that in order to have a successful conception, you need four things, and you need a good quality egg. You need a good quality sperm. The desire to have a child with one another needs to be there, and the baby room needs to be ready. And that's the uterus, that's the womb. So when we have really painful, heavy periods, there's a lot of inflammation here. And usually the egg quality is really impacted as well because there's really high oxidative damage stress. And so if I can get you to focus on really improving your own well-being and your own health, so not only you can get rid of painful periods, but you can have a good pregnancy. And if you happen to have a daughter, which this patient actually did, you now have the tools to be able to help her manage and understand her hormones, because this patient did not have that. And she actually had her mom that she lost in her teens due to breast cancer, which we know has a huge connection to estrogen dominance. Of course, she doesn't know all the details because she was quite young, but looking at, we'll see some of the tests and what's going on. It's very much this generational disease that we've just been passing on. And she really wanted to stop that. She also had a history of frequent bacterial vaginosis and yeast infections, and that's actually a tail sign of microbial imbalances. I have some really good resources on the root cause of endometriosis. If you want those, just make sure you comment endo resources and I'll send that your way. But again, we really want to understand the root cause of why you have endometriosis. Don't just stop at the diagnosis, because yes, genes are very much involved in this, but we can turn certain genes on and we can turn them off. And the environment is what's going to dictate that, not just your current environment, your past environment as well. So the history of bacterial vaginosis and yeast infections just told me that she's been really struggling with microbiome imbalances for a long time. She's also had a lot of digestive distress, again, microbiome imbalances in the reproductive system and in the gut. She had a lot of gas, bloating, loose stools, IBS type symptoms, and even a history of parasites. And she traveled overseas and she got a pretty bad case of parasites. Of course, she would put on antiparasitics for like 10 days. But if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that parasite cleansing is not just a 10-day thing, one and done. It's very much optimizing the function of the gut, the liver, cleaning up any of the debris and inflammation that could have happened from the parasites. And sometimes the drugs are really great at killing everything off, but they might not get the eggs. There might be some inflammation that's left over. And she very much had all those symptoms. She had some fatigue, low mood, high stress, and very much worried about starting a family and what would that look like. On top of thinking about getting her period again, just gave her anxiety and this like pit in her stomach because it was just unbearable what she went through. And so she did not want to go through that again. So I'll show you that there's a couple things that I do in order to really understand kind of the root cause of what's going on. Is I always say you need two things. You need a proper health assessment, like you need someone who's going to really look at all your stuff and help you connect the dots. And then you need some good lab work. And I break that down into lab work and I would say even data, right? Collecting data and understanding what's going on in your day to day. And there's two types of labs. There's labs that show us what's happening and then labs that show us why it's happening. The what labs are very much like blood work, hormone analysis. So yes, blood work, but also things like the Dutch hormone panel, if you guys have heard of it, where it's a really comprehensive analysis of all of the breakdown of your hormones. It's really great to see, but it doesn't show us why those things are happening. Even any micronutrients. So if you're getting your vitamin D tested, vitamin A, vitamin C, zinc, B vitamins, those are all nutrient levels, food sensitivity testing. That shows us what's going on in the body. It doesn't really explain why those things are happening. And what I want you to understand here is that nutrient deficiencies are not root causes. So if you have vitamin B12 deficiency, that's not the root cause of your fatigue. Yes, you're going to feel better when you have some B12, but we have to understand why that B12 is low. Is it because you're not absorbing it, you're not eating enough, or it's being leached out, meaning you're using it for something else, whether it's heavy bleeding or stress, there's chronic inflammation, an infection. What's going on that you have this nutrient deficiency? And this is where the why lab tests really come in. So there is the gut stool analysis. So really understanding what's going on in the gut. And this patient is like textbook endometriosis, meaning, hey, we see these microbial imbalances and this overgrowth in patients who struggle with endometriosis. And we literally saw all of those microbial imbalances. And I'll share that with you in a second. The same with environmental toxins. So environmental toxins that accumulate, they're all endocrine disruptors. They cause estrogen dominance. They put a lot of toll on our liver and our kidneys and our gut. And so then when the gut is already struggling and you're adding more of these chemicals and toxins, and it's not just this her current exposure. As you guys will see, she has insane levels of some of these endocrine disrupting chemicals and toxins. And what I told her is like, this is generational. This is something that is being passed on from a really long time. Of course, your body is able to process these things. They all have different half-lives, but it's something that is just in her system all the time. And these genes are just turned on. It doesn't help. It adds to the load and makes it really difficult for her system to function. So you look at, for example, BPAs, it's at 43, right? That's 11. That's over 15 times the amount or close to 15 times the amount that it should be in the system. The same with perchlorate. So these are some of the nasty things that we're seeing in our water supply, in our food supply, things that we're putting on our skin. For example, parabens, whether it's the perfume or lotions, potions, even some of them are being leached into our food and into our water. So really, really high levels, and they're all endocrine disruptors, you guys. When I see this, I know her liver is struggling. I know her mitochondria is going to be really impacted, which is so important for egg quality, energy production. And she had low mood, she had low energy, high stress. And so it was just really adding to that load. She had glyphosate, which is a really common herbicide and pesticide. She had it close to the high level. She was right in there. And anything that you see that says N-acetylcysteine, so this has 2-cyanoethyl with it, but that tells me that the liver is really struggling. The other thing that I talked about was the gut. And so some gut diversity issues, not enough diversity, but she had a lot of these gut pathogens. She has the Klebsiella at the high level, Campylobacter species, E. coli. And so we know that her gut is not efficient at getting rid of this stuff. And of course, it's really impacting anything that's impacting the gut microbiome is very much going to impact the reproductive microbiome. We kind of think of these two systems as separate, but if you think about where they are located, it's like the uterus is basically just surrounded by the bowels. And with endometriosis and any scar tissue and adhesions that are formed, a lot of the times the bowels are involved and there's a lot of inflammation. And so we think that these things are separate, but they're very much connected and they're only separated by a few cells. So seeing this large overgrowth in the gut and then seeing a lot of inflammation in the gut, I knew that we really needed to focus on improving gut function and helping absorption with fat. So her fat absorption was a bit sluggish. Her immune system was activated. So when this marker is up, it just means the immune system is working overtime. And what happens eventually is it suppresses because it's like it can only work overtime for so long. And if we don't deal with these infections, and eventually the immune system gets suppressed. And so we start to get sick often, the energy really drops, we start to feel tired and brain foggy. So we want to deal with this and really support the immune system because that's also going to be really important for pregnancy and being able to sustain that pregnancy. This is where kind of the test gets redundant, but she had some overgrowth of bacteria that we see. And more importantly, she had some really important bacteria like lactobacillus strains that were really low. More importantly, she had some things that she was missing, like lactobacillus is a really important bacterial strain that we need loads of, and she had very little. So it's just this imbalance in the bacteria of too little of the good guys and too much of the bad guys and really overgrowing. When we see the Clostridium bacteria overgrowing, it tells me that the gut is inefficient and we're not getting rid of stuff well, and it's going to impact the way your metabolism works. So there's quite a bit of redundancy here, but like I said, in terms of seeing the overgrowth that she had and kind of what her gut is doing was very textbook for endometriosis. Now, because she was still basically, she just got off birth control when she was on this, her hormones were really suppressed. We didn't get a very good understanding of what the hormones were doing. And because she got pregnant fairly quickly, we didn't end up running a bunch of hormones. It was actually quite hard for her to get blood work done, even with a proper requisition. So it's not something that we did as frequently as I would have liked to. We worked with what we've got. We also tested her organic acids, which is basically how you're metabolizing carbohydrates, how you're metabolizing energy, fat. And she had some issues with fat metabolism. She also had some issues with her carbohydrate metabolism where she was building up a lot of lactic acid. And this is a sign usually of poor liver function and also poor metabolism. It means that the energy that she's taking in, she can't break it down into energy. It's getting blocked and shuttled into lactic acid. Now, this is normal to see from somebody who is an athlete and they're pushing themselves, right? Like when you go to the gym and you do a really hard workout and your muscles fill with lactic acid. That's not the case that was happening for her, though. This is just what her body was doing. And so it was preventing her from going into acetyl-CoA and producing this energy. And a lot of the times it's because we have some nutrient deficiencies and we have these toxicities that are causing the nutrient deficiencies. So if I can finish this kind of root cause, it's the toxicities that are causing the nutrient deficiencies. And we want to address both. We want to give your body the nutrients that it needs because I want you to feel better now. But we need to really look at what's causing the nutrient deficiencies if you don't want to be dependent on the supplements for the rest of your life. And don't get me wrong, there's some supplements that we're going to take for a long time now because of the world we live in, but most of them should be around really helping the body bind and get rid of the toxins versus just dumping a bunch of nutrients into your system. So there was a couple energy metabolism issues and nutritional markers that were a bit off that we really worked on. The glutathione marker, when it's elevated, this is your antioxidant. So oxidative stress, meaning that she has a lot of inflammation, she has a lot of stress in the body, and she needed more antioxidants. So what I say is always, are you not eating enough? Are you not absorbing it? Or is it being used up too quickly that the body can't keep up? And I think for her case, it was the combination of all three. I know she wasn't eating enough antioxidants at that time when we first met. She also was not absorbing it because of the gut issues that we just saw. And then she has this like inflammation from all the environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors. It was COVID at the time, and she was drinking and eating not as well as she should have and not sleeping as much, stressful job. So it's all these demands on the body. And she definitely wanted to be proactive and take care of those things before getting started. A couple markers that I want to say just are not really significant in terms of what we found. And then this is actually, I believe, once she's already pregnant. So I'll share that with you in a second. But we did run a micronutrient panel where we just looked at her nutrients to see what she was really low in. And there wasn't anything that was super low, but everything was below average. So ideally, especially when you're getting ready for pregnancy, pregnancy is the hardest thing that the female body will ever do. We want to be in this overflow state of energy, vitality, nutrients. And so I want to see everything minimum on the average line, if not above the average line for some of the nutrients. And most of her nutrients were on below the average line. And so this test, for example, tests the red blood cell and the white blood cell. So we could see what she's taking in right now through her diet and supplementation. And white blood cell is more long-term, like what she's eating. So when I'm looking for deficiencies, I'm looking more on the right side versus like crunch nutrition, I'm looking on the left. And there was a lot of stuff that she was really low in that are really strong antioxidants, like vitamin E and then vitamin A and even folate, zinc for immune system, and copper and chromium, and iron wasn't bad because of course she hasn't had her period for a couple of years. So that was good. Choline, this is a really important nutrient for her liver. So the micronutrient test is what I use to help me supplement, boost the system. So then as we work on the detoxification and getting rid of environmental toxins, because you're not just going to get rid of plastic in one day or 1 week, it's going to take time. But how are we going to support the system to help her have more energy so that we can start working on improving egg quality and energy and hormone health? But we really have to make sure that we take the time to get rid of the toxicities. The other thing that we test is heavy metals, and she did come up clear on that. So that was good. And then the last thing that was really important is the mold. And so the mold, this is a black mold that came up. And right when we met, what happened was she actually had a leak and she did discover mold in her house. So this is something that she ended up dealing with quite a bit. And she actually ended up using this test with her insurance company to say, hey, look at this, I have mold. So they were able to compensate her for some of the stuff that she was working on at her house. So this is the main stuff that we found as a summary She had some low nutrients. She had very high environmental toxic load. And then she had gut bacterial overgrowth. And even the way that she was metabolizing carbohydrates, fat, and energy, we could see that those processes were compromised and there were some low antioxidants. So there was a lot of things that we kind of needed to focus on and work on. And I told her that, listen, you want to give yourself a minimum of 6 months. And she also had like a really stressful job that you want to just give your body some time to reset and figure out what's going on to set yourself up for success. Because what I'm really into, like, I'm not in the business of getting you pregnant. I'm in the business of helping you have a healthy child. And that means you have to be the best, healthiest version of yourself before we even get started. And of course, her partner got involved and he changed a bunch of stuff as well because they both wanted to do a really good job. So in summary, it's this high toxic load and infections in the gut that were transferring to her reproductive microbiome. That's why she was experiencing so many yeast infections and bacterial vaginosis. She had this really poor carbohydrate metabolism and fat metabolism. And it's just this indication of poor liver function that was just jacking up her immune system and really depleting her nutrients. Because a lot of the nutrients that she was low in, like vitamin E, vitamin C, vitamin A, they're all important for immune system function. And they're also important for egg quality. And so here's kind of what our approach was. Number one, we had to get her out of fight or flight. She got an Aura Ring and she started to sleep more. Aura Ring is something that I'm not affiliated with, but I absolutely love the product because it's a great way for you to see what's going on with your body. So if you're just looking to collect some data and really understand what do I need to focus on, sleep is going to be one of the best things that you can put your time and energy towards because there's so many things that happen in our sleep. And the problem is most of us have no idea how we sleep. You can get a pretty good idea based on how many hours and then how you feel when you wake up and how you feel throughout the day. But this is just like really practical data that's going to show you this is how many hours you're sleeping. This is what your heart rate is doing. This is what your HRV is doing. So, what your nervous system function is doing. And she was very much in fight or flight. And her job was like 10 hours a day in front of a computer, expected to work all the time. It was just not sustainable and not an environment that she realized she wanted to be in and realized that there's no way that she could heal if she continued to work that way. And even for her pregnancy, like it would be far too stressful. So she did start looking for a new job right away because these things take time. And it took her time to find a new job. But because she prioritized it, it actually happened fairly quickly. I would say it was like within 3 or 4 months. She started to clean up her environment. Clean water was huge for her. I believe a lot of the toxins like the BPAs and the glyphosate were actually coming more from water than they were from food and the products that she was using. She did the mold remediation. She started to get rid of all the plastics, switched out her toxic beauty products, and then we detox. We did a lot of detoxing, castor oil packs, cruciferous veggies, protein, flaxseed. I have this 10-week detox that I put my patients through. I use cell core supplements that leaders in detoxification and immune system function and parasite cleansing. So the reason again that I want to share this with you guys, because it wasn't just this one thing and it didn't take her a week. This was over a 6-month period that she focused on figuring out her sleep routine, and we just took it one step at a time. The thing that I share with my patients is the staircase model. And the idea is that we don't try to work on things before it's time to work on them. This is the biggest frustration that I see with people before they come to me. They say, I've tried the supplements, I tried the detox, but they did it out in the wrong order and they focus on optimizing or something that they didn't need to prioritize. Where because we got the lab work, we could see exactly what she needed to focus on. And it was like, hey, get a water filtration system. And that was pretty quick and easy. And then it took her some time to find good source of food. And then it took some time to get in contact with the mold remediation company, but we got a filter, like a HEPA filter in her room where she was spending a lot of the time to improve air quality. So there was little things that we could start doing that were very specific to her that then we tracked how she felt. We used the Aura Ring and then also symptoms like her digestion and her energy. So the bumps on the road that we experienced is that her life and job continued to be stressful. So as much as she would have loved to put all her time and energy into doing the program with me, she couldn't. She only had limited time. She only had a couple hours a week max that she could dedicate, and she wanted to dedicate more, but that was just the reality of the situation. And it took her about 5 months to get to a new position. And that was a priority for us because if we could get her out of fight or flight, her system would start to heal. And she really understood that. And she did make that a priority. She did take her time finding the good quality food sources that were also affordable in her area. It's not something that happened for her in a couple of weeks. It was more a couple of months. And then dealing with a mold remediation company, she actually continued to deal with it when she was pregnant. But really the shift for her was when she switched job positions and realizing that she did not want to do that long term. She started to prioritize herself, working out, eating better. And this is where the Aura Ring really helped because every time she would go out and drink and eat, it's like her sleep would be so terrible, even though she tried to prioritize it. I think she did a really great job just taking time to do things well, like switching out the toxic products. She didn't stress herself out about it. She just kind of put her head down and did one thing at a time. She was relentless in that approach to switch it, but she didn't stress herself out. And I think that's a really important point to mention because there's a lot of you that message me that are stressing out about the environment. You're afraid to go outside. You're afraid to use plastic. And it's like, It's not the end of the world. It's just having a system and having a plan and then moving in the right direction. Her period pain went away 6 to 7 months working together. And then she got pregnant shortly after that, like another month after that. So she got pregnant fairly quickly, but she had a really hard first trimester. She had a lot of nausea, a lot of fatigue, and it lasted for like week 16, week 17, which actually usually is a sign of nutrient deficiency and liver function that's suboptimal. This is when the patients always come to me and say, I want to start trying now. I know you have a plan to do all this detox, but like I just want to start trying now because it feels better to start trying versus to wait. And it's always the $1,000,000 question. Am I ready? How long is it going to be? What is the pregnancy going to look like? And the truth is, I don't have an exact answer to that. And so what I always tell my patients and how I work with them is there's no harm in you in starting to try. So it would be different if she was experiencing recurring pregnancy loss, but she wanted to start trying kind of 3 months after starting to work together. And I said, you're probably going to need a bit more time because she was still so hectic in her job and it was taking time to get rid of all the stuff and dealing with the mold. But there's no harm in starting to try. And we're just going to support you, whatever it is that you need support with as we get through the pregnancy. So we supported her a lot through that first trimester. But now looking back on the pregnancy, it's like, would she have benefited of having a couple more months of doing some detox and getting rid of the mold? Her liver probably was still not quite ready for the high surge of hormones. And there was probably some nutrient deficiencies that her body is still catching up from. That would be my best guess in terms of why that first trimester was really rough for her. Most of my patients have a pretty good first trimester when we've done all the work. The rest of the pregnancy was uneventful. And of course, there was some stress with the house and the mold, personal family stuff. We did run blood work every trimester and we modified supplements and diet based on what she needed. She ended up getting pregnant so quickly. We didn't actually run any more lab work. Usually I do before I give the go ahead. So captures both her second and her third trimester. And this is actually when we caught something. So her levels of iron and ferritin were really great through her entire pregnancy, which is fantastic. We want to see that for the pregnancy. She had good vitamin D levels and vitamin B and folate, but this is where we started to catch her inflammation. So before that, she didn't have this inflammation. She never had high cholesterol, never had this high triglycerides, and there was something going on. And this is actually where we found out that she had HELP syndrome. This is when your liver and your kidneys start to malfunction and your platelets start to draw. Now, because she never had any of this stuff before, she had good progesterone. The first thing that we actually did is like, hey, go to your midwife, show them these lab works, because she did not have any symptoms. Okay. Like everybody was puzzled as to why she had these insane levels of liver enzymes and kidney function and all the like platelets that were really low and inflammation. And she did not have any symptoms. She had some maybe mild backache that now we were like, that was probably her liver versus like growing pains with the pregnancy. Like there's so many things that are moving. She showed the labs. And then of course the OB, like this was at like week 37 that we ran the labs, 36. So then by the time she reran it, she was at 37.5 weeks. And they actually ended up inducing her right there. And then like the same day, because it could have been a really scary situation. And because we were proactive, it wasn't. She was able to give birth naturally still, vaginally. Yes, she needed some support, but it was a natural birth. So that was really great. And so I want to share kind of the main takeaways. She has a beautiful baby girl. She recovered really well. She was basically at normal weight within a couple of days. She had no inflammation. Her heart rate really improved, HRV, all that jazz. There's still some bumps in the road, but for the most part, she's doing really, really well. She strongly believes that it's all the stuff that we've done throughout the pregnancy and pre-pregnancy, and I agree. So my kind of big takeaway after seeing this case all the way through now is that we probably could have done a little bit more detoxing before starting to try. She was eager because she was so worried about it being a long journey, and that's totally understandable. But just seeing how she handled the first trimester of the pregnancy and then the last little bit where literally her like liver and kidneys, her detox organs were just like, this is enough, get this baby out of me. Ideally, we would have done some more advanced detoxification protocols, like I would have done some liver pushes with her and parasite cleanses. And if you've watched a couple of my other case studies, those are the things that I do basically with all of my patients. She was just really eager to start trying. And so, although we will obviously never know, like the situation has played out the way that it has played out, I think it might have decreased her nausea in the first trimester and maybe decreased the chance of having the emergency induction in the last trimester. She's not obviously thinking about having a second baby yet, but there's something in her near future in the next couple of years. So, this is just kind of the takeaway and things that we've talked about, what we would have done differently to, and even the testing that we want to do in order to help set her up for success. Because what I'll draw out for you guys, and this is kind of like I've said this before, I'm not in the business of helping you get pregnant. I'm in the business of helping you have a healthy baby. And so fertility is very much the beginning of your journey. And within the fertility mountain, there's different mountains that we need to climb. But once you're pregnant, there's so many things that could happen. And I think I know a lot of women do not have enough support through their fertility journey, through their pregnancy journey, and not through their postpartum. And this is kind of the most critical time for us as females in terms of what happens with our hormones. Pregnancy is the most stressful thing that the female body will ever do. And we literally witnessed that with this case where in the last trimester, her body was like, I cannot handle this anymore. You got to get this baby out. It was putting so much stress on her organs. And then, of course, postpartum, now you have this baby that you have to take care of that needs you 24/7. You don't have time to sleep. You don't have time to eat proper meals. And so not having enough support, it can be really detrimental, not just for your own health, but also like your ability to be present with your baby and support your baby as they're in their time of need, which is so high at the beginning of the postpartum journey when you first meet your baby. So I'm really all about making fertility your healing journey, making sure that you feel optimal, you feel energized, you and your partner are both in this together, and you're really working on being the best version of yourself because your cells will become your baby, and the foods that you eat, the water you drink, the thoughts that you think, like that's what dictates the health of your cells and therefore the health of your baby. And then pregnancy, it could be really empowering process when you understand how your body works. And if you don't know how it works, then it could be a very traumatic experience. I wouldn't say my first pregnancy was traumatic, but the birth definitely was, and therefore my postpartum was very difficult. Whereas in third pregnancy, second birth, it was really empowering. And I was so ecstatic after birth. That postpartum period was so different because of what I did to prepare. And that's obviously what I'm passionate with helping with my patients. With postpartum, this is the generational health. She has a baby girl now, and she knows how her liver works and how her gut works and how to clean up her environment and what foods she should be eating and what supplements she should be taking. And she can take that away and she can teach that to her daughter now. And that's the stuff that gives me goosebumps, you guys. I think a lot of fertility doctors, especially on the conventional side, like they're just looking to get you pregnant. Sometimes you're not even in the green yet. They're like, oh, you're good to go. I think if we can just open up our kind of vision and goals and set higher goals for ourselves, that this isn't just about getting pregnant. It's really about having a good pregnancy and having a good experience postpartum, and then being able to share the knowledge that we have with our children and pass that generational health. I hope you guys found this case helpful. Like I said, there were some bumps in the road, but I wanted to share this with you because I have some cases that I'm working with who have struggled with infertility, who have endometriosis and adenomyosis, and they've been told that they're infertile. And I hope to share those cases with you very soon as we're still working, tweaking, and helping these patients get pregnant. But this case I wanted to share with you because it's not just about the pregnancy. It was really about, I don't want to be in pain anymore. I don't want to deal with X, Y, and Z. I don't want to be ran by my periods. I want to figure this out. And I think that controlling that period, so within 6 to 7 months, her period went from no pain and moderately heavy, but much lighter than what it used to be. and then the following month she got pregnant. It's like, that's huge. The confidence that it builds in her now when she does get her period. And like I said, with her daughter being able to teach that, this is what we really want to invest our time and energy and money into. So if this sounds like something that you want to do and my program and my approach resonates, please fill out the application to my Maximize Your Fertility program. That's linked down below. And if you have any questions, please reach out on my social media. I'm always looking to empower and help women have confidence in their fertility journey. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.